I suppose the most radical part of my teaching at present is that love is not a feeling. Everybody suffers from love, or the fear of it, or the lack of it. Why? Why is love so universally and inevitably heartbreaking, whether it be through the end of a love affair, the death of a loved one, or being locked in with the habitual casualness or grim indifference of a partner? The answer is because we've been taught and conditioned by the world to believe that love is a feeling. Love is not a feeling, it's a sensation. Drinking water when you're thirsty is a sensation, not a feeling. Being in nature or swimming in the sea is a sensation, not a feeling. Lying down when you're tired is sensational, not a feeling, although you may say it feels good. Feeling is an emotional interpretation of experience, and these sensations don't need interpretation. They are just good or right. Making physical love rightly is a sensation, not a feeling. So is the love of God. The same goes for joy and beauty. Both are sensational. But in our ignorance, we emotionalize joy, beauty, and love. We make feelings of them, personal interpretations based on our old emotions. We put our personal past on the present with the result that joy, beauty, and love don't seem to last. But it's our emotional substitutes that don't last, and we become bored, discontented, and unhappy again. The sensation or knowledge of joy, beauty, and love is of course still there, but it's overwhelmed by these coarser feelings. Feelings are constantly changing. None is dependable for long. You can love someone intensely today, and tomorrow or next month not feel a thing, except perhaps for the feeling of doubt or depression that what was so beautiful could change so quickly. Feelings, even the best of them, turn to negativity, disappointment, anger, discontent, resentment, jealousy, guilt, etc. A good feeling starts off being elevating, exciting, like taking a drug substance, alcohol, or having sex. But what goes up must come down, and feelings are no exception. So in a couple of hours or days the downside starts, and you perhaps wonder why you feel moody, depressed, suicidal, or just plain unhappy. You're paying the piper for yesterday's music. And between the upside and the downside is the no man's and no woman's land of boredom, indifference, inertia, weariness, and pointlessness. Okay, so you don't have drugs, alcohol, and sex, but you love someone, as a feeling. Then it won't be long before you'll be experiencing one or more of the painful feelings I've mentioned above, and thinking it's natural. Wait and see. Even in everyday living, you're continually interpreting experience via your emotions, instead of being the experience direct. This is good. That's bad. Your feelings swing subtly to and fro all day long, obscuring the reality, the sensational knowledge or gnosis that it's not bad at all. It's simply life as it is. All feelings are false and deceptive. Enlightenment is to be emptied, not empty, of feelings, and thus at one with the pure sensation of divine being. And that pretty well sums up the whole spiritual process. But the spiritual process is so little understood that people don't realize their feelings are personal and false, and have been misleading them all their life. If that's not true, why is humanity still unenlightened and basically unhappy after all this time, when enlightenment is the completely natural, sensational state of being every moment? By disidentifying with your feelings, you break your attachment to them. When that is done sufficiently, you're back at the beginning, in pure sensation or unconditioned knowledge. You've been beating your head against the wall to get some feelings, and all you've got to do is break the habit and get used to living anew without pain and conflict. But that's a mighty realization, and a mighty simple one, which few are going to accept. They'll be too busy defending their feelings. So, I guess I'll still be demonstrating this the day I die. Enlightenment is enlightenment, and that's that. It's an unalterable, unwavering state of knowledge and being beyond doubt, a completion every moment by grace of the Most High, the unspeakable one, God. That's the ultimate, the absolute being beyond any description. But the ultimate, the enlightenment of man, must translate into his living life. And to me in my teaching that means an enlightened man is liberated from unhappiness. Being and living free of unhappiness is the natural and simple state of all life on earth, except man. He has been misled away from it by spiritual lures and glamour, and the result is the conflict and pain, the fluctuating unhappiness of his short life. Enlightenment can't be pursued or sought after. Truth is here now. No past, no future. People are unenlightened only because they believe in the truth of the past, and therefore must look to the rewards of the future. To be enlightened, to return to the original state of life on earth, requires action now in the present, with no reference to the past. What has to be done is to kill the old priest in you, starve out the traditionalist, the follower, the believer. In other words, to be enlightened of the acquired burden, every spiritual belief and notion has to be abandoned. Every reference to what any spiritual teacher or master has ever said must be set aside. What does that leave? Your own experience. Not your historical or memorable experience, for that's the problem. Your own experience is your self-knowledge of life. Let's establish once and for all what this means now. Forget everything I've said in this article except this question. Do I want to suffer or not suffer now? That's the only truth for you. There's no tradition, no past, no discussion in it. It's all you need. Keep it with you, and at the next temptation to suffer it will prevent you suffering. But only if you've learned in your own experience what causes you to suffer. If you haven't learned that, you're still attached to suffering and will unwittingly embrace it. In that case, you have to read on. Take more time and ask yourself more questions. Have you learned yet that you only suffer when you think about events or feel about them? That you don't suffer from events themselves? Have you learned yet that every thought about yourself is a thought of the past? That worry is thinking, and that all thinking eventually leads to worry, fear, and insecurity? If so, each time you go to think, or catch the thinker thinking even about good things like last night's movie, don't. Stop. Not because Barry Long says so, but because you've realized the truth of thinking in your own experience. It's what you've learned from life, not from someone else's experience. Therefore, it is the truth for you now and every moment. Otherwise, you must go on thinking and go on suffering. One day, when you've had enough of the pain, you'll come to your senses. Have you learned yet that every feeling is a feeling of the past, and that every good feeling soon changes and eventually becomes the feeling of doubt, confusion, boredom, or sorrow? If so, stop believing your feelings. Don't act on them. Wait. Action will happen in its own time. Action taken on strength of feelings inevitably leads to more feelings to correct the action previously taken. And so the feelings of discontent and conflict and corrective actions go on, repeating themselves. If in your own experience you haven't yet learned the truth of the deception of feelings, then you just have to go on believing and thinking, having faith in the past and hope in the future, being happy today and unhappy tomorrow, but never being in command of your own life for long. Love is the state of enlightenment, and enlightenment is the state of love. You can't make any separation between them. Enlightenment is the state of no feelings and pure knowledge, and so is love. All your problems come down to love. Your love life is what your problem is, and everybody else's on earth. God in existence is man and woman. There's nothing else. And unless you have loved God in existence, your duality which is woman or man, unless you have united with that through love and devotion without going through your feelings of love, you're not going to be enlightened. The love of man and woman is the beginning of the love of God. You can realize God within like many men have done. It's one of the rarest things on earth to realize God, but everybody seems to think that that's the end. Where I come from, realizing God was the easy part of it. That God of love which is already here anyway. Who wouldn't be able to realize it? The difficult part is to bring that God into this world where God or love is not. Into that body listening to these words and this body speaking them. That's the task. Do you know what humanity is? What the word human means? The word human, where I come from, which is the enlightened state, means suffering. So when you say you're a human being, you're saying you're a suffering being. And I say you have to get rid of your suffering, and then be being. Enlightenment is the state of being which I am, this moment, and every moment. So I'm not suffering. But humanity loves to suffer. People love to suffer because they love to get excited with their feelings. All you've got to do is get rid of your feelings, which are always negative. Why not get rid of the whole lot of it now? That means you don't know feelings, and then you don't know negativity, and then you'd be in love, and then you would love everybody by not loving anybody in particular as a feeling. That's the state of enlightenment.